Puritanical element in Paradise Lost. Paragraph number 1. Milton is the greatest exponent of Puritanism in English poetry, just as John Brannigan is the greatest representative of the same spirit in English prose. Milton's Puritanism seems to be considerably influenced by the classical and Renaissance spirit. Puritanism, in its broadest sense of the term, has a political, religious, and moral significance. In politics, the Puritan is anti-royalist and republican. In religion, he believes in direct communion with God and places implicit faith in the direct teaching of the Bible, which for him contains all the religion that a man requires. Naturally, such an attitude goes against the practices of the church. In morals and in general outlook on life, the Puritan believes in a serious view on life. He has distrust of art and of beauty and follows a slightly cynical attitude towards all the attractions of life, particularly women. The Puritan further believes in a very abstemious and temperate life with a single-hearted devotion to the main question of life, the salvation of his soul. Paragraph number 2. By nature and upbringing, Milton was as much of a Puritan as he was what he might call an artist or an aesthete. In other words, his moral and spiritual nature was motivated by his Puritan ideas of life. But at the same time, his artistic nature was shaped and influenced by his love of the classics or the Renaissance spirit. Paragraph number 3. The very earliest poems of Milton breathe of that religious spirit which was such a vital factor in the life of every Puritan. Such an early poem as the Ode on the Nativity, with its glorification of the birth of Christ, breathes of this spirit. In Il Penseroso, we first get an expression of that highly serious and melancholic attitude towards life. What are glorified in this poem are peace, quiet, melancholy, contemplation, and pensive silence. The Puritan's sources of joy are derived from such lofty delights as listening to the nightingale, communion with nature, study of philosophy, etc. The old age depicted in Il Penseroso is the life of a hermit who, with hairy gown, sits and notices the stars of heaven to get a power of prophecy. Paragraph number 4. Another expression of puritanical ideas is seen in Comus. In this poem, the two sons and a daughter of the Earl of Bridgewater set out for a walk in the woods. By chance, the sister is separated from her brothers. While alone, she is tempted by the evil spirit Comus and his followers. She resists the temptation. In Comus and his party, there is obviously an indignant representation of the court party given to a love of pleasure and life of unrestrained enjoyment. The philosophy of commerce is eat, drink, and be merry, which Milton refuses to accept through the speech of the lady in the poem. An obvious moral allegory runs through the whole poem. Commerce stands for the attractive voice, the lady for chaste sobriety, the brother for moral strength, and the attendant spirit for conscience. In fact, the whole mark of commerce is a Puritan poem glorifying virtue, sobriety, and temperance. In Lycides, the Puritanism of Milton is no longer implicit, it is rather militant. It is rather the religious side of his Puritanism that finds indignant expression in this allegory. The address of St. Peter to the departed spirit of Edward King is Milton's own condemnation of the laxity, light-heartedness, the worldliness, and the absolute lack of higher principles which the Puritans of those days condemned in the established church. Paragraph number 5. Paradise Lost as a whole is a Puritan epic. Not only are the theme and the treatment out and out scriptural and Puritan, but there are numerous passages which reflect the typical Puritan attitude towards life. Only such can be found in the occasional outbursts against women, their seductiveness, their light-heartedness, and their weaknesses. This attitude towards women is typically Puritan. The various passages in which our attention is drawn to the fact that man's supreme duty is towards God, and the passages which describe the beneficence of God and justify his ways to man are all typically Puritan. There are also quite a number of Milton's usual flings against. Paragraph number 6. As Milton became older, the Puritanism in him became more and more strict. Paradise Regained is definitely more puritanical than Paradise Lost. The central idea of Paradise Regained is the temptation of Christ. Satan, overthrown by God, tries to complete his revenge by tempting the Savior. He first appeals to temptations of the flesh, next to his love of power, and finally tries to tempt him on his intellectual side. In these various temptations to the Son of God by the evil one, Milton the Puritan saw the worldly temptations to which man is being daily subjected in this world by evil forces. In other words, man is tempted to deviate from that all-important task of the salvation of his soul by physical desires, worldly ambitions, and by intellectual distractions of art, philosophy, and science. Paragraph number 7. Samson agonists, which we may call the last great poetical outbursts of Milton, is through and through Puritan in spirit. It is a biblical story of Samson, the strong man and the champion of the Israelites, betrayed into the hands of his enemies by a deceitful wife. He is blinded and made to work for his enemies. Finally, the strong man draws down a huge building in which a number of Philistine lords and nobles had gathered to their complete destruction. In Samson, Milton saw the overthrow of the Puritan cause by the Royalist party. However, there is throughout the poem a repetition of Milton's firm faith in the ultimate triumph of righteousness. In the course of this poem, Milton had the chances to say against royals and well-feasted priests. In Samson's past deeds, Milton glorifies the past achievements of Puritanism in politics and religion. All these examples clearly show that Milton was essentially a Puritan. Thank you.